It's all an experiment. When I tell people about America, the experiment, they're like, what? Yeah.
They're afraid to actually, the majority of people are afraid to say that this was built with machines and technology and like, proper industry. When? In the 1700s, in the 1600s? In America, most of them, many of them, not just America, also Russia, Europe, Australia, Africa. Africa was actually wiped out. And yeah, this is like in Guatemala again. And then you see this picture is actually with a person who walks naked, with nothing in their feet. And yeah, you see the primitive buildings they built afterwards. And then you see this and they say, well, the primitive people built more awesome stuff than, the people in the future. It's just, people are afraid to actually acknowledge the fact that we are very primitive compared to the builders of these buildings. And there's so many of them in the world. I'm gonna do videos in the future with more pictures, but just like this is like a resume. This is like something interesting, like our cities. We build today with skyscrapers and buildings, they look exactly identical with a motherboard circuit in a computer, in a PC, right? So what do you have, typical circuits in PCs and computers and stuff, exactly with the skyscrapers and stuff, exactly the same stuff, our cities. So pretty much all this thing with living in the matrix, living on a computer, where simulation and stuff is true. So if you actually look at the motherboard and circuits, the cities are identical, exactly the same. So pretty much the world we live in right now, which has nothing to do with this type of technology. We live on a computer, and if you watch the movie Jupiter Ascending, we pretty much produce energy for some kind of beings, probably. And that's just our role in this world. So the curious thing is, the previous humanity that built all these amazing things, because obviously these were built by other race of humans and with their own technology, and they always see these huge buildings and domes and columns and stuff. The world was very different back then. We don't know much. Again, this is like your typical design in a city, so pretty much for energy purposes. The same way as on a motherboard, you have the processor, which is like the brain, and all the streets lead to the center, right? So you compare the pictures, it's exactly the same principle. We are experimental beings in a computer, in a way to say so. I guess you know what I mean. And then when you
No, he's
put
right.
some kind of like board or circuit board through heat, you get all the components melting. Again, the melting stuff. And then you go to nature and you see all these melted places. People say, "Oh, this is nature, natural." It's not. This probably was a building or something, or even like there's like living beings which were alive at some point in time, and they're pretty much petrified and melted. So yeah, with technology, with something that produced lots of heat and lots of deserts. All the deserts in the world, they're artificially created. There you go. And lots of these things actually are, many of them are actually in the Arab countries, in the Arab-speaking countries, but also in the Americas and Siberia and all those places. And then this is the power station. You do not build this by hand. And if you compare this with your typical power station
Yeah, you
today,
can't
it's
build that
exactly
by
the same
hand.
principle. It's just this one extracts infinite energy from the ether, which, by the way, in the 1920s, 1930s, laws were made to prohibit the extraction of pure energy. Again,
That's why the Mormons are so wrapped up in their temples.
these things and this industry was built probably by the previous humanity again. So yeah, all lots of stuff and this type of symmetry. This is not made by hand. Impossible to make this by hand. But I guess there's people who actually believe anything that they being told. And yeah, nothing has to do with religion. Then this is like from the Second World War, right? So check out how the whole city is being bombarded, but then they left this untouched. Why? That's why, because it's a power station. They knew the importance of. So that's why even when you speak about the wars, everything was staged like in the movie. You destroy, you reset the whole city, but then you leave the power station behind for you to use it afterwards. It's just once you realize many of these things, but unfortunately, the big majority of human beings that you see on the streets, your everyday life, they're so closed-minded. They're so not interested in not even by like for 5 minutes to listen to what you have to say. You just get called a conspiracy theorist and somebody who has a lousy life, because that's how the world works. I guess you know that by now. Again, this one is like definitely not made by human hand. This is definitely machine made and with molds and maybe even 3D printers and stuff. So yeah, and this reminds me of those stories in the Bible that people don't get, that the Bible is actually a description of
3D printing. 3D printing, you said something interesting there.
technology and other type of beings and stuff. They say like the carriage of fire. It's like a spaceship. Thing is, fire is something that primitive people do not understand, that it was electricity. And if it's like a spaceship, of course they're not going to have the term of spaceship like we see in the movies and stuff. In the real world, they're going to say something like a carriage or something, or like this type of thing, this primitive thing, and with horses flying. But there you go. Then you go to a church, and if you say this, like if you say that the Bible is actually a book describing aliens that come from other craters and technology and spaceships and electromagnetism and stuff, I tried once and I had to shut up because people in churches, it doesn't matter what kind of church, they're so indoctrinated. They're so freaking indoctrinated.
He's
like,
right.
it's even more difficult to speak with somebody in a church about these things than with a person who is not going to church. And I'm not going to church anyway. I do not follow any religion, but I'm just saying, right? People usually expect those
He's
people
right.
to actually be more open-minded, or no, they're actually more close-minded in by far the very big majority of them. And speaking about people in general, doesn't matter if you go to church or not, I guess you realize that the indoctrination levels are so profound, it's impossible to open their minds up. So anyway, hope you like the pictures, and I'll see you guys in the next video.